All right, welcome back to this third edition of the series that we've been doing on, top players at each position, and now we're going to transition right into a top 100 list, which is IDP and offense. This is based off of an article that Joseph Harlow at Jolo63 compiled together off of all of the top 12s by positions that we were doing over at idpguys.org for our subscribers. So, if you want to see more of that content and read those articles and get, the behind the explanation of, where those players landed from the authors, go to idpguys.org and read those articles. Also, go back and watch our last two videos, which was top 12 by position for IDP and top 12 per position for offense. Sorry, a little tongue twister there. So getting into this one, where the way this was compiled was it took all those top 12 lists and really kind of put them together into this top 100. And actually, you'll see it goes to 108 because that's what that's divisible by 12 essentially. And so you'll see some players are missing because they were missing from the initial list, kind of got snubbed. But this is all based off of Dynasty Fantasy Football, and that's the authors put those lists together based off of their thoughts and ideas and opinions, and rankings are all opinion based. So what we're doing is we're providing our opinions and evaluation of those rankings, a little more insight, and get into kind of what might be missing, where someone could go higher or lower, and why. So get a little analysis of these articles. So yeah, I joined again by the awesome Johnny Freaking Fantasy and Brandon Lee TV. You guys love this little series that we're doing, and we're really putting this together. And I think we're gonna extend this, and we're gonna keep this going past this series. We'll get into tiers after this, so make sure that you're following along, subscribing, liking, and sharing these videos. But before we get into everything, let's do some introductions, just in case this is the first time you're watching. Brandon, let's start with you. Tell the people who you are, where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, beautiful people of the internet? It's your boy Brandon Blakeney, aka Brandon Lee TV. You can find me on all social media platforms at Brandon Lee TV, delivering a fresh, tasteful perspective on all things sports.
Awesome. And Johnny, where are you from?
So I'm Johnny Freaking Fantasy. I'm from Pittsburgh, PA, 29 years old. You can find me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to prefer, at Johnny Freaking F1. I'm blessed to be back on another podcast here this weekend. Hopefully your off season's going well. We got the conference championship coming up later tonight, so that's exciting. But sit back on that couch, relax, eat your popcorn, and let us crunch these numbers for you and take our advice to heart within the next couple days. So thanks for rocking with us, and let's get this money.
Nice. There we are. And I'm Nathan at Nate Cheat on Twitter, the founding co-owner of IDP Guys, going to be IDP Plus. At some point when you watch our videos, we're going to stop saying IDP Guys. But that's our transitional rebrand, and I'm pretty much the guy in the chair. So I come in here, I'm hosting, keeping the stuff going. We got two great analysts to really rock through this list. But with that, I just want to share that if you go to idpguys.org and you use the promo code IDP Plus Pod, you'll get 10% off a subscription. And actually, right now we have a special going on because of our Mock Draft Monday shows that I know, Johnny, you're part of with Ricky over there, the other co-owner. If you use Mock Draft in your checkout for a monthly subscription, you'll get that first month for $1. So right now, get access to all of these articles for $1 using Mock Draft promo code. So that's at idpguys.org. Let's get into this first. This is the top 12 right here. This is mixed together. This is Dynasty. We are, this is what was in this article. So really quick for our audio listeners, I'm going to read it off. So at number 1, we got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jonathan Taylor. And just a reminder, this is a dynasty format. So, Johnny, I'm going to go to you first with this. And my question is going to be so Brees Hall was a sneaky top running back this year. And is that due to Rodgers' injury and bad quarterback play? And it wasn't really talked a lot about. Like, looking at this list, I kind of forgot about Brees Hall. I'll be completely honest. He wasn't on my team, and I don't remember, playing against him that often. Do you think he keeps this up when Rodgers comes back?
I do. I really like Brees Hall. I mean, right now, the last 2 years, he's had a crappy offense, especially at the line, we'll say. So he's not really getting much help there, and he's been able to ball. Sometimes we do see the effect of guys just, 11 catches in the game versus Cleveland, at the end of the year. So that's kind of hopefully not what he's going to be every week next year. Volume's nice. I think that'll stay, and I think Rodgers coming back only helps. It's going to be a well-rounded offense. When Rodgers is not there, I'm not really scared. Somebody else will step up, or will happen. We'll see what happens like this year. No offensive support, no love around him, and still does it. So I really like Brees Hall here. I'm not too worried. I think the situation only gets better. Don't expect him to be getting a dozen catches per game, but I think this is a bankable top 5 pick here.
Nice. So, Brandon, what's your thoughts on Rodgers coming back next year and how that's going to affect, players like Brees Hall or even Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for Brees Hall, we saw him this year get more active in the passing game than he has been in his young career. So I think with Rodgers, that will offer up more scoring potential. They're not going to be able to stack the box against him. He'll get more reception touchdowns that we're seeing. I think he just will make this offense flow and make the lives easier for his skill position players. And then I think a guy like Garrett Wilson, I'd probably have him over Olave just because of the potential of being Aaron Rodgers' number one guy. We saw Devontae Adams be Aaron Rodgers' number one guy for all that time, and we saw Jordy Nelson, like guys that have really benefited from playing with Rodgers. So I think a young guy like Garrett Wilson, we saw in practice and preseason, like they were already establishing that chemistry, and Rodgers is high on Garrett Wilson. So I think a guy like that will benefit extremely and potentially move up into the top 10.
Nice. Yeah. And talking about another running back here that seems, in my opinion, I was a little surprised to see him as high as he is, but Bijan Robinson at number 4, Brandon, in your opinion, is this based on the talent of Bijan and the fact that Arthur Smith was just fired?
Yeah, absolutely. This is based on potential, him being at number 4, because if we're being completely honest, like I highly, highly, highly doubt he's gonna outproduce a guy like Christian McCaffrey next year. I think a guy like Christian McCaffrey should be in the top 3, and he shouldn't be 3. But with Bijan, yeah, it's potential, and it's also looking at Algier, how much is he gonna cut into that load? Bijan's too good for them not to be giving him the ball 20 times. He should be touching it 20 times a game, whether that's running it, catching it, whatever it is. And I think a guy like Raheem Morris will come in and make him the focal point of that offense. And I think we'll see a rise out of him. So I'm not mad at him at number 4. I'm just kind of disappointed he's above Christian McCaffrey, but I'm all in on Bijan to the moon.
Nice. Johnny, what about you? What do you think of the Falcons' coaching decisions and how that'll affect the players?
So I really like what they've done, getting rid of Arthur Smith. I think that was a really good call. Hopefully, I don't know why you draft a guy like this and don't use him, to let the wheels fall off, so let the training wheels come off. So, and you know what? Even if there's a second guy there, like an Algier, if they draft somebody, I'm not really timid because if we go look at number 8, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's also a 1B, so that's kind of like how this league kind of can push guys now to be two-headed monsters in the backfield. And I'm not really scared of that. I do think Bijan Robinson is the guy there, so I don't think anyone's going to come in and challenge him for carries. But he's a walking bomb, can make a big play happen anytime. So this is like Brandon said, based off potential. He hasn't put the pencil to paper completely yet to justify number 4 over McCaffrey, but if you're thinking over the next 6 to 8 years, yeah, he should be respected here.
Gotcha. Well, so we've talked through these top 12s up to this point. Now we're putting them all together. So I really want this question's for both of you guys, and I'll start with you, Brandon, and then Johnny. You can jump in right after. Like, hey, here's our top 12s, and we've had some moving around. But is there anyone else that you would say needs to be in here, or is blatantly shouldn't be in the top 12?
Honestly, for me, it's Chris Olave and AJ Brown. I think that there are a couple more receivers that are more productive. I'd probably move Tyreek Hill up a little bit just based off the season he had, and maybe CD Lamb at 2. But overall, like it's a solid list. I think that it takes into consideration a guy like Bijan, who Johnny mentioned is just a walking highlight, who can be one of the faces of this league. And we're going off a little bit more of potential in that aspect. But, I look at a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs as well, who's very deserving. Ross St. Brown as well. Maybe Saquon Barkley, could crack this top 12. I think just him coming back with a healthy Daniel Jones, a healthy offensive line. They have a really good draft pick, potential to add another receiver to that lineup to open things up. So I think Saquon Barkley's kind of being slept on a bit right now.
Gotcha. What do you think, Johnny?
You know what? I agree with what Brandon said. I think the only one I'm kind of disputing is maybe Olave. I think works out in his favor. He's so young and he has done well the first 2 years. And wide receiver is a more bankable position to me in Dynasty if you're starting up than a running back. Even with like a McCaffrey or Gibbs, I might say, oh, guaranteed to be good the next 2 or 3 years. But running backs have a short lifespan, so Olave maybe does have the sexier pick by position, but yeah, Gibbs and McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey at lowest, I'll put him as 4. So I'm with Brandon on that. But no, if Jonathan Taylor is at 12. No, this is a completely fine list. I don't think there's anybody that I would bump up into here. So I'm completely fine with this list moving forward.
Nice. And, just for the listeners out there, we've got, this is just the first 12 and we're going through to over 100. So we're going to increase the pace a little bit with how we get through this. But one thing you don't want to, take too long to do is, getting your Trophy Smack belt or trophy. You want to really savor, putting that up on your shoulder, showing it off to your friends, your fantasy league mates that you just beat, and just really enjoy that moment. So if you go to trophysmack.com and use the promo code IDP guys at checkout for a piece of hardware, something like a belt, a trophy, you'll get a free ring, a free fantasy championship Super Bowl ring that you can customize for your specific league or hey, even if it's not for a fantasy league, you can get this for corporate parties, other events. And or if you're just a fan, they put out a tweet today where they just had like they looked ugly as heck, but San Francisco 49ers belts that guys were wearing to the game that are going to be, and I say the ugly just because it wasn't Detroit Lions blue colors. So they're amazing quality. This thing's got some weight. What about you guys? Do you guys, have anything that you laud over your fantasy league mates, to show like, hey, I'm the champ, I'm the winner? Johnny, you got a bunch of stuff on your walls. Tell me about some of that.
So this is what I do with my winnings. Luke Kuechly, his rookie year, he kind of won me my IDP league. So I pay homage to these guys. Johnny Manziel, from one Johnny to another. Big fan of him. I got Jerry Rice behind me, Dan Marino. Those guys are just, they're shelf value. They're not getting anywhere. But yeah, that's what I do, man. I take my winnings and go straight to the shop and get Shaq Leonard. I got him downstairs framed up, his SCSU jersey. He did me well rookie year. So, but I want to say about those man, I got about 20, 30 little league trophies in my room in my parents' house, man. I wish they would have had belts. I was born in the wrong era. I wish I would have got a belt instead of a trophy as a kid, man. Buy those for little league baseball.
There it is. Brandon, what about you? What do you do to, show your championship to your friends and your league mates?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we do have a trophy that travels for wins. So I definitely have my team etched in that plate for the championship. So it's definitely a good thing to have that pride. Like yeah, you're playing for money and that's cool, but having the trophy, being able to take those pictures and talk trash throughout the whole off season, it's just a really good feeling. We actually almost got a belt. We may be transitioning to a belt. So.
Nice. There you go. Yeah. So for everyone listening out there, go to trophysmack.com, use IDP guys promo code, and get that free ring when you get your hardware. And, definitely do it because it just takes your league to the next level when you're fighting for, some hardware, something cool, tangible you can actually touch. So, but with that, let's touch on the 13 to 24 part of this ranking. So for our audio listeners out there, I'm going to start here at number 13. We got Brandon Ayuk, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Etienne, the name that I always mispronounce, Jackson Smith in Jigba. Did I get that right
today?
There you go.
Puka Nakua, Kyron Williams, Garrett Wilson, Travis Kelce, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, apparently slept on Sam Laporta, and Patrick Mahomes. So, okay, obvious question from me here. The Lions fan, I do like Travis Kelce, but Brandon, we've got Travis Kelce, what is that, 3 spots ahead of Sam Laporta. Kelce might retire. And just looking back at the article, what was Joe mentioned that, yeah, this is a little flip-flop. Travis Kelce maybe a little bit high, but he's going based off of a win now, dynasty kind of format. So, this is where, you get a Travis Kelce. Maybe he doesn't last the 3 to 5 years that a Sam Laporta does, but he helps you win that championship out the gate. Do you agree with that? Would you still ride Sam Laporta? What are your thoughts, Brandon?
I think if we're talking right now, as of today, Sam Laporta is a better football player than Travis Kelce right now today. I just feel like Travis Kelce's on the decline. He had a big game, caught a couple tutties their last playoff game. So I think, he's still got some gas in the tank. He's still trying to silence the haters that are sleeping on him. But man, just next season, I think Laporta is going to have a bigger year than him. I think something you have to monitor is there's no way that the Chiefs don't go out and get Pat Mahomes a big-time receiver. This year was cutting it way too close, too many drops, too much frustration. I see them going after a Mike Evans or a T. Higgins, which will absolutely cut into Travis Kelce's reps. I also see them possibly getting another tight end in the draft. You got to start thinking ahead of taking some of that pressure off Kelce. I think he's starting to take that step back, getting into his mid-30s. So for me personally, I think Laporta will have a more productive season next year and be a more focal point in that Lions offense. I mean, we see Hawkinson, the former Lions tight end, up there at 14, so we know they like to get those tight ends involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, do we think Travis Kelce might be, settling down? He's got Taylor Swift, up in the stands, and he's just ready for that, retired, home life. Johnny, what's your thoughts on this? Travis Kelce for another couple years, or?
I'm going to say no. I just don't think that in Dynasty in a startup, you might pair him. You might, if you're drafting Travis Kelce, the smart thing might be to get like a Luke Musgrave, Kraft, Dallas Goedert, somebody that you can kind of fall back on, even a Michael Mayer, somebody who I like a lot, young guy who might get it clicking. A year ago, we were talking about Michael Mayer as the Sam Laporta, so don't let that name forget, but no, honestly, my opinion is, in if I'm in a startup here, I'm not touching any of these 3 guys yet. Maybe Laporta at this point, but Hawkinson, you have to remember he came off that knee, that ACL, so he's no guarantee to be ready for next season. When we're talking Brandon Ayuk's, Travis Etienne's, Puka, Garrett Wilson, to me, those are just much more bankable picks at this point in the second round. So I like these guys. I think I'd go. Me personally, I like Laporta, Hawkinson, then Kelsey, but I'd save that for another 12 or 24 picks. Me personally, there's just too much young tight end, and we've seen, Travis Kelsey back when he started. It took him a couple years. Took Zach Ertz a couple years, but I mean, now we see Dalton Kincaid, these young tight ends coming out and doing it. So yeah, I'm throwing the tight end position for now in general.
This kind of reminds me of like when Gronk was kind of on his way out, like still somewhat productive, but kind of more so living on his reputation more than production with Travis Kelsey.
A little bit of name value.
And you have maybe by the end of the year, Travis Kelsey gets his, but like it wasn't pretty. He had a couple, big games here and there, spike games, but like you had to live with some bad, rough outings,
Especially because most time he was going top 10 in drafts this year.
Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we have beat this question, a bit like a dead horse in our previous video. So I do want to go into something that is a little bit new for this video, which is where the quarterbacks land when looking at the whole picture of the top 25, and that's 21 with Josh Allen. And before the show, we were kind of talking through a little bit on this, and Brandon, you had some thoughts on like who the first quarterback is, and then where they landed. So share your thoughts there, Brandon.
Yeah, certainly. Guys, just for me, the way Lamar Jackson is producing, second MVP, he's getting you rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns, just that dual threat, true guy. I just don't see 21 guys getting drafted before him. And that's not to say Josh Allen can't go before him, but just looking at it, like there's no way I would take a Kelsey or a Jackson Smith in Jigba over Lamar Jackson right now. If you're building your team, like you can wait on quarterback a little bit, certainly, but when you've got those kind of 3-4, when it's Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, like Lamar Jackson's one of those guys you can reach for and build your team around.
Gotcha. What do you think, Johnny? Would you move these quarterbacks around?
Me personally, especially in redrafts, I throw quarterbacks. I'm the guy taking, Jared Goff when everyone has a quarterback, and I know nobody's going to take another one. Nobody's going to take a backup. So that's kind of my move. But this is Dynasty. And keep in mind, I think the biggest point to make out of this question is that we're going with one quarterback in this system here as the Dynasty layout. So I play in a super flex Dynasty, and, at this point, at number 20, I'll say even number 20, there's at least 2 or 3 quarterbacks off the board. So that makes a huge difference too. One quarterback versus a super flex. But no, I mean, going back to my point, let's pick number 15, number 14, and number 15. I think Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, those are much more bankable. You might be a little bad taste in your mouth with Mahomes. He was the top guy. And then you draft him this year, and he's number 5 or 6. To me, that doesn't really kill you, But Travis Etienne, like I said, that running back position is not forever. So maybe you're only guaranteed 2 or 3 years if they don't, if Tank Bigsby doesn't step up, somebody else doesn't go there. But he continues to do what he's doing. But no, I don't see risk with these guys. That's the big thing here. I think you swallow your pride. You take one of these quarterbacks, especially in a super flex, and you move on because. Like I said, this is still top 50 picks in Dynasty redraft. They have to be bankable. And like Brandon said, Jackson Smith and Jigba, there's still factors out there. He could be like potential wise, but I want to see it happen. We don't know what's going on with Lockett, with other coaching things there. So to me, that's early. And thankfully our drafts aren't really yet. They're, still weeks and months ahead. So you have time to buy that. But yeah, absolutely. If we're talking about bankability here, I'm taking a quarterback, over some of these guys.
Got it. There we go. All right, let's keep this rolling into outside the 25. So we're gonna start off at 25 with Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Justin Herbert, C.J. Stroud, Mark Andrews, James Cook, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Trey McBride, Joe Burrow, Ernest Jones, Micah Parsons. So a couple of things I'm seeing here is, a lot more quarterbacks kind of all bunched together right after those three got taken. And then now we've got our first IDPs off the board. So, Johnny, I'm going to ask you a little bit on those first IDPs. Like, is this where you would start that run of, taking an Ernest Jones, a Micah Parsons?
So it depends on who you're playing with, and what your scoring is. So for our commonality of our layout here, this is going to be a balanced scoring system for defense. So with that being said, and knowing your opponents too, if you're in a gritty IDP league where people know these names, you might have to jump for somebody. But me generally, because I have confidence in myself, that I take a lot of chances on guys. Maybe a Christian Harris, now that we're seeing what he's done in playoffs, maybe that's somebody who's on the back of your mind. To me, it's an absolute not. I'm not picking any linebackers, any defensive positions yet. That's just personal opinion, because I know I can get them later. I'm confident in myself. And usually the guys that I play with are, 9 to 5 guys that are casual fans, So if you have that advantage, I'd say throw it till later. But I want to say Mark Andrews, sorry to go off on a tangent here, but Mark Andrews, number 29. If we're talking about tight ends, if I can have him at 29 versus those other guys ahead, I'm taking Mark Andrews as my first choice at 29 because he's a bankable player. Value's a little bit down. He's still young. So to me, I'm still taking the bankability. Ernest Jones is a great linebacker and somebody who I, picked, who I took a shot at this year, and it really paid off because he wasn't really known in the, in the casual IDP community. But still, Mark Andrews, Justin Herbert, Saquon Barkley, Trey McBride too is a really nice pick. I can't pass those guys up for linebackers yet when I am so confident in my knowledge for sleepers there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I do as well is I'll wait on, the linebackers, or I'll try and catch the start of the more shallower positions, like if we're playing DTs or cornerback, safeties, that kind of stuff.
Max Crosby, it might be different, because he's very bankable. Ernest Jones is somebody who keeps getting better, but still a linebacker. I think it's easier to judge linebackers, and get them later, get a discount versus your edge rushers, TJ Watts, Max Crosby. These guys do it year to year. To me, they're more bankable. So even that they would be, I'd agree with you, defensive tackles, your dominant edges, those guys, could be going here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brandon, what about you? Are you liking this run on quarterbacks in this ranking area, or what about the IDPs that are coming off the board here?
Yeah, honestly, I think that this is a good run for the quarterbacks. For me, I'm kind of with Johnny. I'm not going top 30 with linebackers just because there's so many more position skill set, like skill players positions. You're still trying to stack your number 2 running backs, your number 2 wide receivers at this spot right here. So I'm looking more like if I can get Saquon Barkley at 26, I'm loving that. I'm feeling like I got a league champion if I'm getting him at 26. If I'm getting Mark Andrews at 29 and I got people taking Travis Kelce over him, I'm feeling very good about that. Just from a production, James Cook at 30, you're talking about a guy that, in my opinion, should be top 20. A young guy who just got his first start this year, had career highs in just about every statistical category. He's got his quarterback coming back in Josh Allen. That offense is going to continue to go to him. The reps, he has no competition in that backfield, really. He's young. He comes from a good bloodline, as we see Dalvin Cook. I don't know what their parents are doing to raise these running backs, but they're doing the right thing. And then this is a personal preference for me. So not knocking anybody, but I'm not big on taking outside linebackers, especially early. Like I'm looking at a guy like Micah Parsons, and yeah, he's a big name, and yeah, he produces on the field. But from a fantasy standpoint, I'm looking at more so at a guy like, Devin Lloyd, Cameron Bynum, guys that are in the trenches getting tackles, a Quay Walker, somebody like that that's going to be making plays, but it's also like always hitting the running back and in the midst of things. I drafted Ernest Jones his first year, so I'm there with him. Love his game. I wouldn't take him at 35, but I do agree that he should be one of the first linebackers taken.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, well let's keep this going into 37, and right at the top is one of the very relevant linebacker names. Actually, seeing him kind of fall now. In Roquan Smith at 37, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, Dalton Kincaid, Dak Prescott, David Njoku, George Kittle, Jordan Love, Anthony Richardson, Terrell Bernard, Miles Garrett, Kyle Hamilton. So our first safety there, in fact. So this seems like a real big mix of defensive players and some quarterbacks in there. What are you seeing here, Johnny? Like Roquan Smith, he was last year's and last couple years number one linebacker off the board. Now displaced by Ernest Jones. You liking that value? Or are you buying the dip? Like, what's your thoughts there?
I'm liking the value. I still don't think, even I'll say in the top 50, I'm not going to at least break the seal. If there are, elite linebackers coming off the board, maybe I do have to jump a little bit. But, I as far as Roquan Smith, I like it here. You're getting him after you're not even the first, linebacker off the board. I think Roquan Smith has that potential. Maybe the uncertainty of what Patrick Queen's situation is. Me personally, I don't think he gets re-signed there, which is a good thing for Roquan. So I think Roquan goes back to he didn't miss a beat even with Patrick Queen. He was a great linebacker. We're talking about a top tier IDP dynasty play. So I like Roquan Smith. Yeah, he's one of the first linebackers off the board. To me, still too rich. I got guys later for that. I think that this is still a little bit early, but I do think that the homage, if we're talking linebackers off the board, Roquan Smith has to be, one of the top three. So that's deserved, I think, there.
Nice. And Brandon, we've got Dalton Kincaid there at 40, rookie coming in, having a big year, displacing I can't remember the
Dawson Knox.
Dawson Knox. Thank you. That's I drafted him last year, not realizing Dalton Kincaid was going to be, the elite player that he was, and really take over that position. But we've talked a few tight ends throughout this. Is Dalton Kincaid being slept on here at 40, and would you be, I don't know, head over heels to get him this late, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if we're looking at it, like I think he's gonna have a better season than a guy like Travis Kelsey next year. Depending on, like, I'd probably have him above Trey McBride at this point as well. Just because of the situation with the Cardinals, we kind of don't know what's going on. He's just in a more stable position where he has a quarterback. He's in this offense. He was stellar his first year. They love making tight ends, and getting them involved in Buffalo. He was like a safety net this year for Josh Allen, reliable. I think he continues to get better. If I can get him at 40, I'm cool with that. Because you've got a tight end that you're going to start every week. Other than a bye week, you may have a backup, but Kincaid's an every week type of player. I think, another offseason to learn this system, to continue to get, not even learn the system, but to continue to get more comfortable, to become an expert in the system, I think will be good for him. There's a big jump between that rookie year and your sophomore year in the NFL, I think. You're kind of still like a college kid wet behind the ears that rookie year. And then you get that first year of experience. He gets that weight program. He gets bigger, faster, stronger. So I love Kincaid at 40. I love Njoku at 42. I would take him. I don't know if I'm taking him. I don't know if I'm taking him over George Kittle just yet, just because last season was a really good year for him, but we haven't seen it consistently. We saw it for like 10 weeks last year. Can you trust Njoku for 17 games? I don't know, and I'm not comfortable enough to have him as just my only tight end. I think you would have to have a 1B if you had Njoku.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So, another surprising thing, and I'm going to touch on this real quick, is seeing that safety in the top 50 here at 48. Johnny, do you think Kyle Hamilton is worthy of that spot? Would you put a safety that high up on this list?
So I think the mindset here is if you look at a player like Derwin James, he's kind of still in his prime. He's not old by any means, but at that position, man, if we look at the last 4 or 5 years, Derwin James is just a 1AA. He's just stuck out so much compared to other guys. And I think that's the mindset here with Kyle Hamilton, another highly touted prospect out of Notre Dame. Great player, very physical, very instinctive. He's playing for Baltimore. It's a great look for him. I think all signs point forward. So I think this is kind of not only him, but Terrell Bernard. We're also the Ernest Jones. I think there's a lot of homage paid here for the young guy. So I think that kind of influences this in the top 50. Me personally, I'm not taking him at this position or at 48. I'm not even taking still no defensive players, but especially not safeties because maybe he's an exception, kind of like Derwin James, and I think that's another point here. But we talked about Cameron Bynum. I mean, even Josh Metellus is another guy. Like, there's guys that just come up out of nowhere in the defensive back community. So to me, it's a volatile position. If you didn't invest early, you might have gotten like a Jesse Bates type of, Jesse Bates was awesome. Top 2 or 3 defensive back safety this year. So to me, just too much risk and volatility in that position. I might take a safety and then kind of like see where it goes week 1 and make a move from there. If you had someone like Julian Blackman, you waited, you did your research, you would have found him and he would have been a fine stream for you for the duration of the season until he got hurt. So I don't like him here. I like the respects to him because, it's a standout potential and he could be that guy for the next 5 or 8 years. But to me, it's not such a needy position. I'm going to stream that. I'm going to wait till later for safety.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move into the outside the top 50 with this next slide here, and we're looking at number 49, Devon Achane, Fred Warner, Derwin James, Bobby Okereke, T.J. Watt, Quincy Williams, Zaire Franklin, Foyesade Aluakun, Will Anderson, Aiden Hutchinson, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray. That's almost entirely IDP outside of 2 quarterbacks there. But some big names that really stand out. Brandon, what's your thoughts on who we've got here? And, is this now we're getting into that IDP run that happens during drafts?
I think so. This is like when you see like a Ernest Jones or Raquan Smith come off the board, you're kind of looking around like, okay, I might need to find the key piece to my defense. Olakun is a guy that I'm definitely looking at. Still under 30, a tackle machine, the heart and soul that Jaguars defense. Okereke is another guy for the Giants that has just performed. He kind of came on with the Colts when Shaq Leonard was out. We saw what he could do, and now he's the featured linebacker. Fred Warner is another guy that I would take, higher than most linebackers as well. But if you're getting Devon Achane at 49, man, you are having a heck of a draft, fellas, because he's going to produce. He was almost 1,000-yard receiver rusher this year, and he missed like 4 or 5 games, 6 games. So if you're getting him at that low, I think, you're doing something right. Derwin James there is definitely sticking out. We mentioned Cam Bynum as well. Just when you talk about those tackle machines, those are guys you want to look at. I'm not picking a rusher this early, though. Like outside linebackers, pass rushers, I'm not taking them this early. I'm looking strictly on defense for IDP guys that are going to rack up tackles, just based on the leagues that I've played in.
Gotcha. Yeah. Absolutely. And for you, Johnny, you mentioned before the show that this list was kind of missing Jaden Reed, wide receiver for Green Bay Packers. We also kind of highlighted a few other notable missing wide receivers in Devontae Smith, Stephon Diggs, Jalen Waddle, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Jordan Addison, and Rice. I don't know his first name.
Rasheed Rice.
Rasheed Rice.
White.
I almost said Ray Rice, and I was like, no,
Rice.
That's a different guy.
Yeah.
So,
You do, yeah.
Yeah. So, Johnny, where would you kind of position some of these wide receivers, that you're saying are missing, and specifically Jaden Reed, and is it in this area?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you a general answer here. I mean, guys like, Jaden Reed's somebody who can take it to the next level, be a wide receiver too, for a duration. I think he was a great pick coming out. He does kind of like Deebo Samuel things. They give him the ball, not only deep shots and slants and stuff, but they also give him runs too by the goal line. So this guy's a walking bomb too. I really like him. I'd be interested. I'd be willing to take him. I was telling Brandon before. I'm like, Brandon, hey, 57, Will Anderson. Are you taking him before you're taking Jaden Reed? Because I'm sure as hell not. So this is definitely a spot where I'm starting to kind of get a little bit chippy with it. Like I said, Rashee Rice is another guy. Maybe not like household names, top 50 bankable plays, but I think you kind of have to take the hunch on this one. Kind of look forward, not backward on those kind of picks. But yeah, I think Nathan made a really good point that, there's a lot of guys. We talked about 42 and 48, David Njoku and Kyle Hamilton. I mean, if we're talking Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, those two aren't on my list. Njoku's outside the top 50. Hamilton's outside the top 50.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got wide receivers, Devontae Smith, Stephon Diggs. This is Dynasty, so he's, bad taste in our mouth there. But Waddle. Then we got Nico and Tank Dell, in Houston. So I definitely could see a case being made for specifically, I'm more of a Nico Collins fan, bankability for him inside the top 20. I think that's a great landing spot if you want to land him there. Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice, those guys aren't on this list too. So because this was a compilation of top 12s and we didn't stretch it out, we didn't give 14, we didn't make any adjustments. We just kind of compiled these. Take these with a grain of salt. All these players that I just named, if we're talking about number 57, Will Anderson, or even Kyle Hamilton, I'm taking all these guys above those. So because just of our format, they didn't make it in there. But I think this is a great point to stop and say that and reflect on those guys that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all of this comes down to opinion and the format of how we put this together. So, and it's January. We're talking about guys. We're putting out content in January. This is going to change with free agency, the draft, and we're going to be coming back to this. So definitely, make sure you're subscribing to idpguys.org and watching out for all of the great content we're putting out, but specifically, these ranking articles that we're doing. But let's keep this moving and go into 61 to 72 here, and at 61 we've got Jake Ferguson, Jesse Bates, Minka Fitzpatrick, Josh Allen, the defensive end, Quinnen Williams, DeAndre Swift, Budda Baker, Antoine Winfield, Derrick Henry, Jeffrey Simmons, TJ Edwards, Azeez Al-Shahir, and just as a tangent, since we have Josh Allen defensive end on the board here, during the season, I want to give a good shout out to Taylor Swift and, some of those celebrities that have been bringing fans into the NFL to watch. Because this year, my wife fell in love with Jason Kelsey, watching for Taylor Swift during games. And we were sitting on the couch watching the what's that? Jaguars versus the Bills when Josh Allen sacked Josh Allen, and told my wife about that, and she had to chuckle. So I just had to bring that up. But, kind of looking at these, we're starting to get a little mixture with the IDPs, the offensive players a little bit more. But something that stands out is Derrick Henry there. And I know we've talked about this in the running back part of the other video, but, do we see him and his value rising if he goes somewhere, I mean, as a free agent, he's got to go to a running back needy team, right? So to speak. Do you see that happening, Johnny? And does that increase his value from here, or is this kind of the max?
I definitely see some cracks in his game, but at the same time, it depends on that landing spot. It depends on what he wants. Is he ring chasing? Is he going to go to Baltimore and be, 1A to 1B, Keaton Mitchell, where it's like don't know what you're going to get. I'm not sure. He might be in it for the money. If he's in the for the money, he goes somewhere it's probably more fruitful for fantasy for us, right? So it depends on what he wants to do at this point in his career. I still think that he's has gas in the tank. He was a great running back this year. Home run hitter still, even though he's getting older and bigger guy, he's still able to hit that long ball. So Derrick Henry at 30, it doesn't. If I'm getting 1 or 2 years on a good platform, I'm more than fine with taking him here. But we're getting a little bit lower now into the 70s rank. Maybe I'd take like one of those bankable linebackers. Maybe have faith in one of those guys versus taking the shot here. Again, we're early. We'll see how Derrick Henry's situation plays out, but I could see it going both ways. Hopefully he wants to go somewhere where there's opportunity for him and show that he's still got juice, because I'm betting on him.
There you go. Yeah. And keeping with this theme of running backs, and, Johnny, you mentioned it a little bit in the last slide, but for you, Brandon, talking about some of those missing running backs: Josh Jacobs, Rachaad White, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Pacheco, Nick Chubb, Jordan Ford, and David Montgomery. Where do you see that? Would you have been taking some of those guys already, or do you think that they're kind of yet to come in this list?
No, I mean, I'm looking at a guy like DeAndre Swift. I would have happily taken him already. Josh Jacobs is as talented as any running back in the league. He had a down year this year. He's battling injuries. They need a quarterback, but just from a pure talent standpoint, I'm absolutely taking Jacobs. Looking at Jerome Ford, I'm looking at Rachaad White, and Rachaad White's a safe pick to me. He's not. He may not finish, running back 1, 2, or 3, but he's not going to be fighting for carries. He's going to get the volume, which turned into production for him this season. And he was the focal part along with Mike Evans of that Buccaneers offense. So if I'm looking at a guy like Rachaad White, I'm loving that he doesn't really have a whole lot of competition in that backfield. You're looking late, like linebackers wise, a Shahir or a TJ Edwards at 71 or 72. If that's your first linebacker off the board, you're still doing pretty well. Those are still 2 top linebackers, especially Shahir. But yeah, I'm definitely looking at Josh Jacobs. David Montgomery would be very valuable at this stage. DeAndre Swift, I think, is valuable because of the same reason Rachaad White is. He's younger, and he doesn't have a whole lot of competition in that backfield with the Eagles. So I think, you got to kind of gauge situation and reps and opportunity and the flow of the offense. Because I was looking at a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, who we were kind of talking about before, who gets a lot of production. Zeke didn't really eat into his carries a whole lot, but the Patriots offense was so bad that even with those reps, he was still boom or bust type of guy. So I think that's some things that you kind of got to weigh out.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I want to say, too, that was good to bring in TJ Edwards. TJ Edwards, if you can get Ernest Jones at 43 or TJ Edwards at 71, boom, I'm taking Edwards here. And that's my draft strategy a lot with this IDP. Like, yeah, it's nice to have the Foyers, the Roquans. There might be a time where it's like, wow, 6th round and nobody took him yet. I might jump, right? But as soon as that happens, someone takes the Roquan, you're like, boom, okay, well, I'm going to look at Ernest Jones. Ernest Jones gets taken. Okay, boom, who's my next guy? TJ Edwards. Pretty soon you'll be getting like, oh, maybe someone forgot about Bernard. Maybe someone forgot about Tremaine Edmonds, his partner there. Oh, he goes. Now you're, so once the pressure gets on, then you kind of unleash it at that defensive position. But like, look what would have happened if you took Ernest Jones. You missed out on great players. Now Azeez Al-Shaair, he's probably going to get re-signed, I think, in Tennessee. Great, these guys, Edwards, Al-Shaair. There's even guys later in this list that we haven't mentioned yet. Don't forego offense yet. Defense changes year to year a lot of times, and linebackers kind of like the running back of the defense. That's forever changing too. So another importance to stay on the offense, really get that. And people, when you have trade value, I feel like people give more trade value to the offensive players, to skill positions versus the defense too. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I think too, with I'm just not big on taking defensive tackles. That's like one of the last positions, like with kicker. that I'm looking at. Like, you can find quality defensive tackles. You could
Justin,
get
right?
Yeah, I mean, you could get a guy like Christian Wilkins with probably like in the 100 pick if he's even on this list. Like, that's a guy that's going to produce that you don't really have to reach for. And then with Derrick Henry, I kind of agree with what you were saying, Johnny, as far as like is he going to go chase the bag? Is he going to chase a ring? If he goes to Baltimore, I'm dropping him. If he ends up somewhere like Chicago, I'm probably cool taking him before Jake Ferguson at 61 and sleeping good about it, feeling like I got a great value.
I'd agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you bring up a good point with the defensive tackles. Obviously for this, since we were doing positionals and slotting them all in, we have to kind of assume that the roster has at least one or two defensive tackle positions to make them valuable enough to even be, included. Because if it's just a defensive line slot, you're going an edge rusher every time and filling that up. But with Quinn and Williams there, Jeffrey Simmons, those are our first two, I believe, off the board. You know, just as far as like if you have to get those guys, and sometimes I do like, when Aaron Donald was like in his prime, I would be picking him sometimes within the mix of edge rushers because at the positional value, like he's just far and ahead the competition. But Johnny, what do you think? If you're forced to, based off roster, to give some you know value to your defensive tackle picks, are these the guys you're trying to target and at this spot, or are you, like Brandon said, looking for a little later, the Christian Wilkins, those guys that could kind of come up and fill in?
Oh, I love the question, man. To me, I'm a tackles guy, and to me, I'm not. It's nice when you have a well-rounded player like a T.J. Watt or a Max Crosby. I'm all for that. But once and Quinn Williams is a really bankable defensive tackle. I really like that there. But for me, what are you expecting out of the defensive tackle? I mean, is there one that's going to give you 20 a game? To me, it's no. So these guys aren't like the sexy guys of IDP. You might get a 10 or a 12 consistent with like a good defensive tackle. So to me, I'm foregoing it still. If we look at a guy like Justin Matabuke, he was probably a free agent. You probably picked him up and look at the year he had. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a deep position, but to me, I'm chasing the tackles. I'm not chasing the sacks. I'm strictly going for tackles because it's a number that I can gauge easier. If we talk about the guy from, who is it, Brown, Derek Brown, right, from Carolina, who set the record, that's somebody who I'm looking at. I prefer him. If I can get Quinn Williams at 65, Simmons at 70, or we'll say Brown at 85, I'm taking Brown out of those three just because it's later. I have my bankable tackles, right, and I can put draft stock elsewhere in my skill position still. This is still early, right, 70 picks. So for me, defensive tackle is that one position where it's like, I'm just going to get somebody that can maybe give me 8 to 10, a couple tackles a game, and really throw that position and really bolster up your other positions, whether it be skill positions on offense or there's linebackers and safeties. So, no, I'm not touching one yet.
I know for me, like just looking at the value, you could go like for me. So on my team this year, like we had the D line spot, D tackle. So I had a guy like DeForest Buckner, who's 28, who's still playing like he's having back-to-back career years. He's a game wrecker. He's one of the top defensive tackles in the game. You still have him producing right now, but I also have a guy like Jalen Carter, who's young, who can replace him, but can also develop for the next 3 years. So, I mean, you could also go that route. Like DeForest Buckner is a guy that's not going to get mentioned in the top 100. He's one of the best at the position, and you could still grab a TJ Edwards in this round and then wait, 2 to 3 more rounds, and you can grab a DeForest Buckner who's going to produce just as much as Quinn Williams or maybe more.
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
I'll wait another page or two and take Buckner. I agree with that.
Yeah, well, let's look at another page here and
there we go.
Who we've got. All right, so this is starting at number 73. We've got Patrick Queen, Evan Ingram, Javon Holland, Brian Branch, Devon Witherspoon, Trent McDuffie, Daniil Hunter, Cole Kmet, Trey Hendrickson, Chris Jones, who I apologize, I misspelled his name again, DeForest Buckner, and Tremaine Edmonds. So hey, we've got some cornerbacks coming off here now. And just to preface that, yes, we did a whole tiers of cornerbacks, and we're assuming that you have a couple cornerback slots in this, because if you're just got DB slots, not necessarily as valuable. And then as you'll see later in the pages, it's going to be kind of filled with cornerbacks, as it just they're not as valuable, so they land towards the end. But Johnny, what do you think of these couple guys that are on the board at this point? We're just inside, or yeah, just inside the top 100. Do you think cornerbacks are valuable here? Are you still waiting? It's kind of similar to that defensive tackle spot.
You know what? I think it's a tough question because first my mind's going back to like the Rashad Whites, the Nick Chubbs. That is going to push those guys down. So we're talking about Brian Branch here at 76. He might be 85. With those adjusted rankings with those guys we missed. So I'm fine with it. Brian Branch, he's kind of like a cheat code at corner there. He plays in the box. He gets sacks. He does it all. So that's kind of a sneaky pick there. And same thing with Witherspoon. I really like those two young guys, maybe guys that we're talking about as the best, make that jump to be the best corner, and to me, there is a difference between like a cornerback and defensive tackle. I told you to throw that position. That's kind of, don't put too much draft stock capital into it. But you know what? I'm switching to the other side on cornerbacks. If you can get somebody like a Brian Branch, a Devin Witherspoon, even like I like a guy like Kenny Moore, from Indianapolis. Those guys are bankable cornerbacks. And going back to my logic, it's not like you're looking for 20 picks, because that's not going to happen. It's the tackles. Kenny Moore had a safe tackle floor. Then he got you 2 pick six in the game too. So that was really nice. That stuff is additional. But to me, you're looking guys that make those splash plays here, get those outlier sacks, make those tackles for loss. To me, I'm throwing out Javon Holland. He is that type of player, like to make splash plays, but we've seen him have some injury concerns. I mean, I don't think the tackles are really there for him. It's sporadic with the tackles, so that's somebody who I'm lower on. I'd put a Kenny Moore or Teron Johnson from Buffalo ahead of him as more of a bankable pick, but I'm fine with it. You want to have a good cornerback, somebody, because this is a position where it's like, you don't have to draft a guy inside the top 50. If you get Kenny Moore, maybe like a 90, you're already benefiting because he's out producing most cornerbacks. You're getting over on somebody else there. So with the draft capital being less invested into it, I think this is a fine place to take one of those cornerbacks.
Nice. Brandon, what are you seeing in this part of the list? Are there any diamonds that stand out to you, in the rough, or, some guys that are just like, man, get these off the screen?
Two players stand out to me. Teammates actually. Cole Kmet, I think, is an absolute steal at 80. If you can wait this long and still find a tight end one who's reliable, who's getting better, who's young, who is locked in with his quarterback, you kind of got to wonder what they're going to do with Justin Fields, but I think he's a guy that, can be an everyday starter. Evan Ingram as well. You're getting everyday starter value in the top 100. And, you've pretty much filled your offense up until this point at 80. Like, you filled your starting lineup. The tight end's probably the last piece. So I love that. I think there's just so many better linebackers than Tremaine Edmonds, though. At 84, he's going to get you tackles, but he's not like a linebacker one, I don't think, at this point in his career. He's still he's big, he's physical, but he's not like a top 10, top 20 guy in tackles right now. There's just way better linebackers that you could wait and get later on in the year. But I love, like Johnny said, the cornerback value. Like, if you're looking at like interceptions, you may go for a guy like Deron Bland or something like that out of Dallas. But those interceptions are a flash in the pan. I want guys like Branch, Witherspoon, who are getting downhill in the running game and making tackles, and also, getting physical and making plays like Witherspoon with the pick sixes. I love Tremaine Johnson too, but yeah, Edmonds, I think this is a way too high for him.
Gotcha. Well, let's keep going deeper, and let's see, at number 85, we've got Jaquan Brisker, Christian Barmore, Cameron Bynum, L'Jarius Sneed, Dexter Lawrence, Derek Brown, Jalen Carter, Hassan Reddick, Brian Burns. There's Aaron Donald, Kyle Duggar, Jordan Battle. So, as we get towards the end of the list, it is becoming, because we took those top 12s and just ranked those a little bit in a vacuum for top 100. We're kind of getting like the end of that list. The players are kind of stacking up at positions, but Brandon, are you seeing anyone in here that's standing out as like these are guys that I would want to be getting?
Yeah, definitely Cam Bynum would be one of the first DBs that I would reach for easily. You're talking about a guy that's top 15 in the league in tackles at the safety position. He's always got his nose on the football. From a production standpoint, he's going to be a guy that if you can get him at 87, you're doing exceptional because he's basically a linebacker out there, to be honest with you, with just the production, the tackles. Love Derek Brown, Jalen Carter, like two value picks there. Brian Burns as well. Kyle Duggar's another like utility guy that plays all over the field, and they get really creative with him. So at this spot right here, I'm looking for role guys. I'm looking for production. I'm looking for depth. I'm looking at guys that I can put in if guys are going through slumps or if they're having a tough matchup. You got a guy that might have a long night. You might want to defer to one of these guys. But these are crucial picks. You're filling out your roster here. So big value here, in my opinion.
Gotcha. And to you, Johnny, with Aaron Donald being so deep into this list now, do you see him as like being a really top backup or second player? It seems that he hasn't made as big of an impact as he has in the past in the games that he's in. Do you think that's just a fluke of this year? Does he bounce back, or is he getting ready to kind of sail off into the sunset?
Yeah, I think the second part of that question is paramount. Time. Nobody finds a fountain of youth, so it's going to come at some point. It's kind of like a Travis Kelce to me. Like if you're going to use him for 1 year, you better protect him, right? You better draft another young defensive tackle. You better be savvy in that department. If you don't know defensive tackles, don't just be stuck with Aaron Donald, right? So if that's not your forte, you better protect him. Derek Brown, I think is a great pick here. I'd rather take him than Aaron Donald. Brian Burns, another great pick at the edge. So specifically Aaron Donald, I do expect him. You could ride with him, and if you heard me before, I don't put too much significance on that position, so I'm fine with it. Just protect him. Know that it's not going to last forever, but still a player that should be drafted nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're still getting starters when you're talking about Brian Burns and Derek Brown, two guys that are top 10 in their positions, respectfully. So, yeah, like major value.
Nice. All right, let's round this out with the last slide here. At number 97, we've got Nate Hobbs, Christian Wilkins, Chavarius Ward, Kenny Moore, Ed Oliver, Tyreek Stevenson, Razul Douglas, Harrison Phillips, Christian Gonzalez, Derek Stingley, Denzel Ward, Desmond King. So a couple of these names came up previous, and talking about Kenny Moore, Christian Wilkins. Johnny, what are the diamonds in the rough here? Who are you like excited to be able to get at this point?
Definitely off that left side, the first two, Nate Hobbs, love him. That's a bankable tackler at cornerback position, young guy too. Loving him here. Loving Christian Wilkins here. Look at those tackles. He does it. He does everything for you. He's probably going to get brought back. He's a great player. He's not like 32 years old. I think he's like 29, not even 30 yet. Kenny Moore, one of my favorites there. I really like him. If you could get Kenny Moore at 100, I'm fine with him over any previous cornerback. I'll take him at 100. That's fine to me. He's still young, cornerstone of the defense, makes tackles, makes big plays too, makes tackles for loss even. So those are outlier stats there that elevate him over the rest. Always has a knack for the ball. So I really like Kenny Moore. Tyreek Stevenson's a player who I think can take that next step. He's had big games this year. I think he got hurt a little bit, but I'd like to see him take the next step. Don't sleep on Christian Gonzalez. He's like a cheat code at that position too. I really like him. He's somebody who's coming off of injury, so maybe kind of slept on. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes that next step. And finally, I want to say Desmond King. Desmond King, the way he's playing right now, he was a for me, a streamer at the end of the year in a couple IDP leagues, slot corner, really strong in the tackle department. I think he led the Houston Texans in tackles their last game. So don't sleep on him for next year. At least, if he gets brought back and the stars align for him, I think he's a sneaky good pick here too.
Nice. Yeah. And so, Brandon, just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, give us, what are you seeing off of this list? But like overall with the top 100, like what's your, we've gone through it now. What's your take? There's some players missing, but overall, like, I guess, is there anything that stood out to you?
I think it really, for me, depends on your league, the rules, the scoring. That's big, and what positions are prioritized. For me, the running backs and the linebackers are pretty much like priority, because they go fast, and there's not a whole lot that are elite at that level. Um, I would also like, I don't, in Dynasty, I have Joe Burrow as my quarterback. I think you need an elite quarterback in Dynasty. Just someone that you can rely on year after year. But overall, I think it was a nice balance of production mixed with youth. Guys that we haven't seen them put it all together necessarily, but we see the flashes, we see the potential, the raw ability, and you're banking on guys that are expecting an expanded role in their offenses. I'm also looking at a guy that wasn't on this list, like T. Higgins, or another guy like Brandon Ayuk, who was on the list. Those two guys, may not be with their teams in the next couple of years. They're both wide receiver ones, respectfully. So you're looking at guys. What are the contracts? Are they going to go somewhere in a better situation where they can flourish? So I think those are just things that you have to weigh. And then you're looking at young guys like, I love Christian Gonzalez. He's coming back from an injury, but he's absolutely a cheat code at that position. Big, physical, does a lot. That's what you want out of your corners. Guys that are going to make tackles. I think you just got to look at value though, above all, and just obtaining that depth, making every single pick count. Every pick that you make could possibly be a guy that could see some action within the next year or two.
Nice. So, Johnny, last question to you here. Round us out. What's your thoughts on this top 100 list as a whole?
Well, going back to our key point here, our key takeaway, this was all the top 12 positions, right? Compiled into one. So that's how we got our 108. A lot of defense because of that. It was top 12, right? So there's probably maybe 6 to 12 at defensive tackle might not be drafted in your league, So take that with a grain of salt. There's a lot of defensive players that were named on this list. To me, I'm more offense in the top 100 than defense. With that being said, let me rattle off some names at linebacker that we did not say that you can get outside of these players, right? Here we go. C.J. Mosley, Logan Wilson, Quay Walker, Ivan Pace, Devin Lloyd, J.O.K., Coramella from Cleveland, Bobby Wagner, Levante David, Jordan Brooks, and Robert Spillane were all off this list. So to me, adjusted rankings, some of those guys make it. Like I said, defensive tackles, maybe cornerbacks, the last second, third tier of those maybe get kicked off, and some of these guys make it. But this is how your draft, panned out to me. What I was saying, don't touch linebackers. I'm going straight to waivers and getting these guys, So to me, stock up on that offense, on those skill positions, those young guys, right? Because you can still get some of these guys that are slept on. I bet if we did top 200, maybe Robert Spillane's not even on that list. JOK might not even be on that list, right? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but still sleep on the defense for me. That's my takeaway from this, and still a lot of good names left off the list.
You're talking about guys that were top 5 in tackles this year. Bobby Wagner leading the league, so definitely.
Right, even Nick Bolton, another guy, So adjust those rankings according to your scoring. What you agreed with, what we left off. So we're looking forward to refining the way we look at these lists, present these lists. So this is a nice way to do it. Compile everything we did, but we'll also start nitpicking and going into some tiers, which will give it more fluidity and more validity, I think.
Yeah. And one more name too, a big linebacker that you could have a potential getting to is Alex Singleton out of the Denver Broncos.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you guys for being part of this. And before we wrap up, I just want to give a little preview of like I think we're gonna keep this going, and we're gonna start into tiers by position for this show going forward. And just thinking about it too is, at idpguys.org we put out ADP. So we might even get into some of that as well, kind of mix it up and, look at rankings, but then look at ADP, and maybe this summer we start, rectifying those things and seeing where people are getting ranked versus where they're actually getting drafted to find that, the value pieces of like, hey, this guy's really highly ranked, but he's being slept on. So, we can start piecing those out when it's really into that drafting time. Right now it's January. We're really just talking names right now, and we're going to get into even more depth, and these tiers by position. We'll go 24, 36 names deep and talk about these guys starting the next week and everything. So. With that, make sure you're subscribing to this YouTube channel, IDP Plus Network on YouTube. Hit the little bell to make sure that you're notified whenever a new video comes out. We've got videos coming out. It's like every day now, and then if you include shorts, it's like our weekends are packed with betting content, with the playoffs happening right now, and that's going to go for another couple of weeks. But by the time the true off season hits, we will have one or two or more full videos coming out daily. Really exciting time to be a subscriber to IDP Plus, idpguys.org. And, like I said at the top of the show, take advantage of the subscription. Go over there, use mock draft promo code for $1 for a month subscription, and then that renews at $10 a month. Or use IDP Plus Pod for 10% off a higher subscription. So you can get like a year-long subscription for that percentage off. With that, let's go last around the room of like where people can find you guys. Let's start with you, Brandon, and what kind of content you're putting out.
Definitely find me on all social media and check out my YouTube page where I'm putting out daily content as well at Brandon Lee TV, all the biggest headlines in sports. You can also catch my writing, articles, and insight on the IDP Guys website. So definitely check in and get that free game that we're kicking out, baby.
There it is. Johnny, what about you? Where can they find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyFreakinF1. During the season, I do start sits, I do waiver wire pickups, for different scoring. Right now, a lot of retweets from the IDP guys network. So if you want to, good way to keep tabs on them, all their betting and all their articles, I'm retweeting too. So get on the wave with me. I'm not big time yet. I didn't take off yet. I'm on my way. So hey, send me some sit questions. I'll get back to you soon. A lot of energy, a lot of passion, and hopefully steer you in the right direction. So do your IDP research, get that offense, and reap the benefits later in the rounds.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you're putting in the work, man. I see you on a couple shows popping up, on our channel. Loving to see it. Loving that you're a part of this, and you guys are both just very smart. Dynasty IDP offense analysts, and definitely everyone needs to be following you guys. And as for me, I'm the guy that keeps it all together, keeps the technology working. At Nate Cheat on Twitter. You'll see from me mainly. I got a really funny cat video that I posted last night of my cat falling off his bed on a perch. That's kind of stuff. Or hey, I will slam your timeline full of Lions exciting tweets as they hopefully make their Super Bowl run. But if you want to follow me at Nate Cheat, or follow at IDP guys on Twitter for all of our content. And with that, let's have a great AFC NFC championship today. These games are going to be really exciting. and I'll see you guys next week.
You don't want to say go Lions?
Go Lions.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.